Welcome back to another week of Gossip Without Prejudice. Today we're talking about mistrials from the bench. By mistrials, maybe misconduct. Welcome back. My name is John. Lindsay's name is Lindsay.
Hello.
Support from the podcast comes from Hemmat Law. If you need great attorneys or want to join a great team, go to hemmatlaw.com/GWP. You know where to find it. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all the good buttons. Tell one person about this podcast. It would be a huge personal favor to us. If you'd like to get in touch with any of us or submit your own stories, comments, feedback, thoughts, opinions, go to gossipwithoutprejudice.com. Pledge as low as $5 can keep our lights on and the podcast on the air. Lindsay, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm excited to dive into this crazy story we've got today. How are you doing, John?
Good to return to our roots. Tell me what we're doing here.
Yeah, so this is a fresh story just within the last few weeks. So we are talking today about the absolutely wild and allegedly true story of legal misconduct from Judge Joe Don McGaugh.
Okay.
I struggle a little bit with that last name there.
Okay.
McGaugh. We'll give it our best try. Please be patient with us. Thank you. The full schmagoigle of the hardest names of the McGaugh.
Okay.
So, this is egregious to me.
Okay.
So, Judge Joe Don McGaugh's was an associate circuit judge for Carroll County, Missouri.
Okay.
He was elected in 2017 and re-elected unopposed in 2020.
So what I'm hearing is they're elected. When you say circuit judge, this sounds like a state court. Does that just Superior Court, or is that an state appeals court?
Ooh, I don't know.
Because,
off the top of my head.
For example, the New York, I believe, calls their Supreme Court is called the Appeals Court, and their Appeals Court is called the Supreme Court, which I think there might have been whispers about them fixing that because it was so fucking confusing to everyone out of state. They're switched. I think I need to look into this more, but I know that there was a state on the East Coast. Maybe it was Maryland or somewhere nearby.
He was an associate circuit judge.
Okay.
In Carroll County.
I'm guessing this sounds like Superior because Carroll County, it sounds like a Superior Court judge. Then they just call them circuits. Okay, yeah, lots of states do different stuff like that.
Okay, and this is in Missouri, so I personally am not at all familiar with Missouri's judge structures. So I wanted to make note of that he was only elected in 2017. He hasn't been doing this for very long in the picture of American judges in the full. And on February 28th, 2025, Judge McGaugh was suspended without pay for 1 full year.
Right. By who?
By who? The Commission of Retirement, Removal, and Discipline. Okay.
Is that a state court body? Is that a bar body? What's because sometimes the judiciary, like the Supreme Court of every single state, delegates certain task forces or committees. So was this the bar or was this the judiciary that did this?
This was the judiciary.
This was the judiciary.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, there's some real power exercised here, so it's definitely not the bar.
That's unusual to see the judiciary move against a judge. What happened?
Yeah, this is crazy. So he has 12 alleged counts against him violating the Code of Judicial Conduct. 12 whole counts. So I'm not going to go through every single one of them, otherwise we would be here all day.
Okay.
But I'm gonna give you the most egregious ones.
Okay.
The ones that I enjoyed reading about the most. So are you ready to dive into count 1?
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. Judge McGaugh took on an advisement of a divorce case in September 2021. 5 months later, in February 2022, the wife's attorney. 5 months passed. The wife's attorney reached out to inquire for a judgment. Saying, what's going on? All right. McGaugh said that he had given his judgment to the clerk a couple of weeks ago, but that apparently the clerk had just lost it.
Okay. Why is this misconduct?
We'll get there.
That's my question. Okay. But the clerk so he claimed
he claimed that he gave it to the clerk.
But it was he claimed just basically clerical error.
Yes.
Okay.
Later that year, the attorney also let McGaugh know that the wife's mortgage was in default.
Okay.
And she was in danger of losing her home without a judgment on this divorce. So, do you think he did anything with that news?
I don't think so.
He didn't do anything with that news. October 2022, the Commission on Retirement, Removal, and Discipline asked McGaugh why they were getting complaints about this case. Why is this delayed? Why has this been over a year that this divorce has just been sitting here with no judgment?
So basically it was sitting, waiting final orders for about a year?
Yes.
Okay, that's here. That's not... I mean, that's bad, but I've seen cases delayed up to 6 months.
It gets worse.
Okay, keep telling me more. Yeah.
So the commission reached out to him and said, what's going on with this? He lied and told the commission that he had given his judgment to that clerk, when in reality, he never gave that commission to that clerk. He lied to the attorney about it, and then he lied to the commission about it.
So how did we prove he didn't? Because judges rule their own courtrooms. How would they know?
Investigation.
Okay.
Luckily,
all right, gotcha.
Investigation. I'm very happy to report. August 2023, the case is still sitting there. So it's been almost 2 years now that the case is sitting there without judgment.
Okay.
The commission again contacted McGaugh asking what the heck is going on. He responded with, I gave it to the clerks. I'll follow up with them.
Okay, got it.
Fast forward all the way to March 2024, and we still don't have a judgment, and he just keeps dropping the ball over and over and over
So
again.
he hasn't entered final orders in a divorce for years.
Yes.
Why does the commission care? It's not that this should have happened.
The commission cares because they're receiving complaints about the case.
From who?
I believe from the couple or their attorneys, the couple whose divorce was in question here.
Oh, okay. Strange.
Yeah. The opinion piece that I read from the Supreme Court of Missouri did not specify who the complaints came from.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
because that's interesting to me, because usually from just the same person, I don't know. It feels like I'd be interested to know more about who was complaining and why they cared, because I feel like they would have just given up after enough time.
The other part of it here is that they're already on his tail for some other stuff that we haven't gotten to.
Gotcha. All right, understood.
Yep. So this March 2024, it's still just sitting there. The commission reached out to him again to say, where is this? This time he drops the name of the clerk that he supposedly delivered his judgment to. So he's lying and blaming it on this clerk.
Okay.
And the clerk denies ever having received this filing. So he finally filed it February 2024, around 29 months after it landed on his desk.
Man, okay.
Yeah, isn't that just wild?
Well, I mean, honestly,
the repeated lying about it is what really gets me.
It's honestly pretty tame for me.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Because the judiciary, not that I'm like happy that he's done this, or like I'm not thrilled. But honestly, divorce delay and then just saying it was given to a clerk, I've seen far worse.
Yikes.
Honestly. It's not that that's right or that's the way it should be, but that's why I kept asking about what else is going on, because the judiciary would never care.
Yeah.
I mean, worse things have happened here just in King County. Like, routinely, things get lost in the system all the time. That would never be a reason that the Judicial Ethics Committee, at least here in Washington, would move, which is an unfortunate reality.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's
so
unfortunate.
What else did he do that actually got him in trouble?
Let's see what you think of count 2 here.
Okay.
We go all the way back to April 2018.
All right.
Judge McGaugh took under advisement a motion to modify a child custody and support case.
Okay.
A full year passes. We're in April 2019, and nothing has happened with this case. The parent's attorney reaches out to McGaugh and say, what the heck is up? And also informs that a new dispute had come up in the family, and this needs to be settled urgently because they're arguing about all of this custody stuff. His response was, I intend to get the pending judgment out this week. Do you think he got it out that week?
He did not get it out that week.
He did not get it out that week.
I mean, all of that sounds pretty par for the course, honestly.
I'm so sad to hear that this is par for the course. I thought this was egregious.
Oh, it is egregious, but it sounds like what did him in wasn't any of this. It was just that he did it too often, too frequently, to too many cases.
Yeah, probably.
And
if he'd only done this once or twice, he almost certainly would have gotten away with it.
Yeah. And so, like, I've had judges delay, like, in that circumstances. I've seen judges delay like 3 or 4 months minimum. Just because sometimes it's because there's like post-trial motions. But usually it's just like, it'll sometimes be like 6 to 9 weeks just to, like, with all the motions just sitting on their on their docket, and they just don't get around to it, or it's heard in chambers without oral argument. And if it's without oral argument, then the timeline is whenever the judge gets to it. And so honestly, this is bad, but like, honestly, it's just worse than we have here, but not unheard of. This is pretty frequent. Things get lost in the system all the time. Yeah,
unfortunately. So he said that he was going to get the judgment out that week.
He did not get the judgment.
He did not. Months and months and months passed. In December 2019, he had a settlement conference. And then in June 2020, 7 months later, he had a status hearing.
Okay.
And back in December 2020, the mother had moved for a mistrial because she's like, this is going on for way too heckin' long.
Yep.
But get this, he didn't do anything about this, and the case sat there until April 2024 when he finally dismissed the mistrial motion and entered his judgment. So 6 whole years this case was sitting here. And what really gets me is this is child custody and support. This kid is probably 18 by the time he finally enters his judgment, and it doesn't even matter anymore.
Well, I mean, and it's custody and support. That's why the court doesn't care, because no one's going to die. Like, and no one can die, and more importantly, what they have lost can generally not be quantified.
Sure, that can be really difficult to
figure out.
Yeah,
because it's like how much, like what so the
But at least try.
But at least try. But the courts only have access to 2 types of relief. They have monetary and equitable relief, and that's it. That's all courts can do. They can either give you money to make you whole or return you to a prior position, or they can make someone do something. But when the issue at hand is something like, what is time with your children worth? What is being able to see your 9-year-old grow up worth to you? They can't force you to go back in time and experience that again. So equitable relief is generally off the table. And monetary relief, time with your children is literally priceless. It cannot be quantified.
Right.
And so family law is kind of just like this amorphous gray place. There's a lot of days where a lot of us are just sort of cogs in a machine and the machine is only like half on. I mean, I wish I had a more shocked and outraged response to this, but I've been really desensitized to this sort of stuff. Honestly, I applaud the commission for actually being on top of this.
Yeah.
Though I will stick up for our commissioners and judges here in King County. Most of the delays, or not just King County, but most of the delays I see across the Pacific Northwest is just because courts don't have enough funding. And they make mistakes. They really do try and correct things.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've seen this happen. It'll happen again before the year's out. It'll probably happen soon. It'll probably happen within a month or 2.
God damn it.
Yeah. From recording here, is on average, it happens a few times a year for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we got a few more counts to go through here. Let's see if any of these get you, but we'll see. So, count 3.
All right.
He had 2 cases, one of guardianship and another of custody, in May 2019. He did not enter a judgment into the guardianship case until April 2024. So there's 5 years right there.
Okay, 5 years right on the table. Okay.
Yup. And supposedly he still has not entered a judgment for the custody case, and it still remains open now in March 2025.
Now, I'd be very interested to see how they organize their circuit courts. Because here you have... here we have like a chief judge that oversees each courthouse. In King County, we have the Mailing Regional Justice Center and then the King County Courthouse, which is like the first one. So many people live in King County that we had to split them between multiple courts, and each one has a chief judge, and each one has a family law law section, and then there's like a chief family law judge, and they do rotations, right? And so if something were to happen where the delay stretched into the years, thankfully that's never happened to us. It's usually just been like around 9 months. Which was already long enough.
Yeah, seriously. It was so painful.
Yeah, I know.
Let alone 6 years.
We might take the extraordinary measure of going before the not the chief judge, but the head of the family law section, because there is a chain of command.
Yeah, so you can go to that judge's boss and say, "Hey, can you help us out, please, just a little bit?"
It's boss might be a bit of a strong word because they're sort of like first among equals because they do rotations. So he's not appointed for life. So the judges rotate through family law. Trials and criminal. But that's good because it means judges can build expertise in the matter before. It's why Delaware has so many businesses headquartered in Delaware. It's why Gossip Without Prejudice is headquartered in Delaware. Yeah, I know, exactly. It's because their chancery court has nothing but judges who do business law 24/7 all the time. It's fast. Relatively, they build that subject matter expertise, and it means that lawyers can't sneak things past judges nearly as easily.
Good.
And that's sort of what they're going for here. But the reason I wanted to ask about the circuit court organization is because was there anyone to turn to? Because not that I'm victim blaming here, but what the hell were these attorneys doing waiting for 5 years?
Yeah.
Right. I want to assign some of the blame for the attorneys here.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, because they were just sitting around.
They were just sitting there waiting to hear from this judge.
It's because the attorneys didn't care either. I mean, rough. Maybe they were engaged for like 6 to 12 months, but after that, they'd just be like, I'm out.
Case isn't happening anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just not going to make any money off of it.
And so this apathy, that's why this apathy. Courts are courts, but like. Surely there was someone these guys could have written the letter to.
Yeah, right?
I can't for over 5 years, like someone dropped the ball.
Yeah, someone more than just Judge.
Yeah, more than just the judge dropped the ball. The judge took the drop for it, but I definitely think there's at least 2 or 3 practitioners here who really should at least be scrutinized on the chopping block.
I would love to see that report.
Yes, I would love to. I don't think it'll ever happen because like once the legal system has their scapegoat, we tend to stop looking.
Yeah.
And now, judge is gone.
It's his fault.
So bad. Yeah, everybody move along. And then we always find a way to arrive at a conclusion where either no one's responsible or one person's responsible for everything. And that's
makes it so much simpler.
It makes it simpler and easier to organize in a structured system, but it allows systemic failures to perpetuate.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So we've only covered 3 of 12 counts here.
Okay.
But I'm going to skip over the next few of them.
Okay.
Counts 4 through 10 are more examples, however somewhat less egregious ones, of this exact same thing. Purposefully letting cases sit there for long periods of times. These cases are 1, dissolution involving a minor child.
Okay.
A paternity case seeking custody and support.
Okay.
2 orders of protection. 2 custody modifications, 1 dissolution, and 1 small claims case.
So these are all people, because he, over 5 to 6 years that he heard these cases, he heard other cases. He basically just, this is a statement of priority for the judiciary. And it's always people with small matters, quote unquote small, people with dissolutions. People who are just looking for time with their kids. That's the kind of stuff that the judiciary tends not to be good at handling.
That sort of emotionally sensitive material.
Yeah, emotionally sensitive, but honestly, not quantifiable or small, like the small claims one. I don't know the specifics of the small claims, but it was probably less than $5,000, I'm guessing. And then people, the money. I'm so desensitized to money. Someone tells me, I can't, a couple years ago, I used to think that $10,000 is a lot of money. Right. $10,000 from a legal sense is a tiny amount of money.
Right.
No one cares about it. Like if you had a $50,000 contract and you went to a contracts attorney, they may not take the case because there's no money in it for them.
Wow.
Because they'd either get paid out of any recovery or they get paid by the hour. Or they would probably agree to take the case on an hourly basis.
Yeah.
But if you go to a contracts attorney and they say they'll take your case, but they'll take it on the hour, they're telling you that they either don't think you have a strong case or they're telling you that they think this problem is too small for them, but they're being too polite to turn you away.
That's really good to know.
Yeah, I know. That's how I'm talking about this because the orientation of how practitioners think and how the public thinks are perpetually out of sync.
Absolutely.
And the public doesn't seem to know that.
Yeah.
Until stories like this come across.
Yup.
Yeah. 10 cases. That's tough.
The one that really gets me are the orders of protection, because in absolute worst case, those could be matters of life and death. Those are the ones that really get me. And when there's minors involved, that's what really pisses me off about this story.
Here in King County in Washington State, we have the opposite problem. The court will give a protection order to anyone. Which
pros and cons.
Pros and cons, though they do it for an understandable reason, is that like no judge wants to be the one to say no and then get on the news.
And public safety.
Yeah, public safety is the rationale, but it creates a bludgeoning effect where if people know it's too easy to get a DVPO, you'll get way more people who cry wolf.
Slap them. Just slap them down, and for your own purposes when it's not really legally viable, but you don't want people to talk to you.
Yes.
Abuse of the system.
It's abuse of the system.
Yikes.
And also it creates, I lived experiences about like a third of our cases, of those that cases that we manage, people ask us if they should claim DV, and usually it's just a veiled, not always, but like we're talking like 2/3 to half the time, it's just a veiled attempt to take the children.
I see.
And we're just like, I was talking with a practitioner about this the other week. Is we had a client who. There's a standard called coercive control. It was a standard brought in by the legislature in 2022. It expanded the definitions for DV protection. It's the standard of coercive control. What's coercive control? That's kind of the problem we're grappling with. We had a client who stopped his partner from buying $800 shoes. Coercive control.
Ooh, that's really tough.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
That was what the court hung their hat on when granting a DV protection order for him.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you may say, well, great. People, the urge is to go and say, oh yeah, everyone should be protected from their abuser. Oh, but then you don't see that the system is way bogged down with people with just nonsense.
Yeah, I wouldn't have ever thought of it like that.
Yeah, this is not to say that DV isn't a real thing.
Right.
It very much is a very real thing, and people suffer from it all the time.
Terrible.
But I think too many, I'd say half the cases in court right at this moment should not be there.
Wow.
It do not. I mean, there's disagreements and people were yelling at each other, but yelling at each other and not liking each other is not reason to get protection orders.
Yeah.
And so this comes up a lot. I'm not in favor of expanding DV protections anymore, and that's against my economic best interest. We make all our money from DV litigation.
It's about principle, folks.
Yeah, it's about the principle of the thing. I see this all the time. This is actually a really good story because I think I see a lot of parallels with what Washington is grappling with right now.
And so complex.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyways, don't stop your wife from buying $800 shoes.
Because the court could bite you in the ass for it someday.
Well, sorry, we're going to keep talking about this, actually.
Okay.
Because the reason coercive control was expanded to include financial abuse.
Yeah. That could get really, really real and dangerous.
Because there was a hole in the statute in prior years where it's you could control someone by controlling all the finances in the household. And so there was need for some sort of language to give the court a way to assess that.
Yeah.
But it's been it's gone too far. Also recklessly driving. The statute is very nonspecific. It says here are some examples that could be coercive control, but it is not a limiting list. So for the first couple years after the statute came out, judicial officers were all over the place. Everyone was coming up with their own definition for what coercive control meant.
Messy.
Lots of cases. It's an interesting case of how legislatures and reality sort of clash.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mixed results.
Yeah, mixed results indeed. Wow, what a mess. I would have never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
I would love to see statistically, maybe in 10 years we can look back and say, okay, in those cases that we got 2022 through 2024, how many of them were actually, if we someday have real, reliable definitions for these concepts, I'd love it if we could get real data, but,
we never will.
Yeah,
we never will because the story of someone's life can't be quantified on paper.
That's true.
And even if they could, the data is unreliable because remember, 60-70% of people in family court are unrepresented. So you're trying to interpret the story of someone who doesn't know how to write their story.
Oof.
And then the last third of people have attorneys, right? And then the quality, there's apples to oranges comparing.
Yeah, entire different types of experiences.
And just because, and what are you going to do based on the outcome? What if the judge just made a mistake, right? Are you going to count that as a bad outcome or a good outcome? There's too many nexuses of subjectivity, which is how the law is supposed to work. This law is supposed to be subjective. You do not want a one-size-fits-all system.
That's true. We don't want to draw black and white lines because that leaves way too much room for error.
It basically chops the legs out from under any objective examination of how the system is working. It's all anecdotes. It's lots of anecdotes, but there will never be a clear picture of what is going on, and unfortunately I've just had to live with that.
Yeah. Jeez.
Because I used to think about that too, but then I sat down and thought about it for more than 5 seconds, and I'm like, there's no way we're ever categorizing this.
Woohoo! Love the complexities of the legal industry.
Yeah, exactly.
Shall we dive back into Judge McGaugh's case here?
Tell me more.
We're getting close. So we just went through counts 4 through 10, where he had more of those egregious letting them sit there.
4 through 10.
Count 11, simply not responding to the commission in June 2024 when they asked why he had multiple cases sitting there.
Okay.
I love that. Count 11 is just a little slap on. You didn't answer us, damn it.
Did they issue a subpoena, or was it just like a email they wrote him?
Ooh, I believe it was not a subpoena. I believe it was just inquiry, verbal.
Okay. Yeah, I'd ignore him too.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be different for judges, but if it's not a subpoena, then it's nothing.
But
you know what I mean?
They were able to include that as one of these counts because he was violating the judicial code by not responding to them.
The ethics. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, so the for civilians, I should say, if it's not a subpoena or a court order,
there we go.
It's meaningless. I mean, there's common courtesy and social niceties, but setting those aside, if it's not signed by a judge in life, generally you don't have to do it. It changes a little bit when you're subject to professional licensure, like in the bar, you are obligated to respond to complaints, at least to comment on them. But even I've seen practitioners ignore initial inquiries because the way Office of Disciplinary Counsel works is they issue you it's usually just like an email letter. They're just saying, hey,
something's up.
Yeah, something's up. Can you just comment on this? And then because family law is one of the most complained practice areas, people hate their divorce attorneys all the time, no matter how good it. Yeah, understandably. So we have experience with this. They'll email us. They say, hey, we received this complaint. They'll give you all the materials they received in the complaint, and then we usually just write them a 1 or 2 page letter saying, hey, here's what really happened. Let us know if you want more information.
Cool.
And then they either decide to open a proper inquiry, an investigator is assigned, and then things heat up, or they just dismiss it. So far, we've never had anything go past the initial inquiry.
Love it.
The bar always is cautious to accept complaints, but they are usually quick to dismiss once the full context is established. Unless you've got something really damning against your attorney, because attorneys have a right to face their accuser. They actually, in my opinion, have more rights than the average citizen because they have all their normal citizens' rights and they have all their rights to due process as a practitioner. And because they're a practitioner, they know how to use them.
I see. So automatically they have a leg up on the civilian population.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And it's really hard, again, as we've established, really hard to get disbarred, even harder to get thrown off the bench, especially if you're elected. Which elected judges are a problem for another episode. But
we could get deep into that, I'm sure. And that's how he ended up with 12 whole counts on this. So I want to add a piece of context here. In Missouri, twice a year, circuit judges need to submit a report on all of their cases that have been open for more than 90 days.
Okay.
So Judge McGaugh was supposed to submit these twice a year.
I'm guessing they are suffering from that problem, which is why they have that requirement.
You would guess, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You would guess. So according to the commission, they found more than 40 instances of McGaugh excluding an open case in one of those reports.
Oh, okay. So he was just falsifying records.
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, I think so judges here, were they elected or appointed?
He was elected.
Do we know what his background was? Like what his education is?
A little bit. He was a Republican House of Representatives. He was elected to the House of Representatives in 2012.
Does he have a law degree?
Yes, he does have a law degree.
Okay.
He was... Excuse me, looking in my notes here. He was a representative from Missouri for 4 years, and before that, he was a city attorney. For a number of years.
The reason I was asking,
experience with a capital E.
Yeah, if you are, and that's actually funny because he's seen what people can get away with.
Yeah.
If he wasn't an attorney before, maybe he would have gotten less leeway. But if you are elected, there are lots of counties in this country where the elected judges are just guys that have no legal experience. They're
Wait, what?
Yeah. You can run for judge. There's actually no requirement that you have on paper. There's no requirement that you have a law degree.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's kind of batshit crazy.
So in a lot of rural areas, this creates a lot of problems because
anyone can be a judge.
I personally am very against judges being elected as a principal because it turns them into politicians.
Yeah.
And because judges have to make difficult, like if the government violated someone's due process rights and then you let a murderer go on a mistrial, that's the right thing to do, but politically terrible looking. And so appointed politicians open themselves up to attack ads just for doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Or in the alternative, there's been meta studies that show that sentencing is far harsher during an election year.
Because they went, that really bothers me.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow,
so
that is not cool.
That's why I far prefer a system that primarily appoints judges because that way it cuts politics out. There's either a set term or it's for life. There's a reason why we do that in the judiciary, and I like the impulse of make the judges accountable to the people so they're elected, and that way make sure. Yeah, but the problem is that opens us up to the nonsense of campaign, and it also right now, when judges next come up for election, what's to stop me from giving $50,000 to the guy I like and then appearing before him, and saying, "Hey, you want to keep your seat?" Not saying it out loud, but hey, do you want to keep your seat next election cycle? I'll just primary your opponent.
Wow.
And that would all be perfectly legal in theory. That's all First Amendment protected speech as long as I, complied with campaign finance laws, which is why I want to do a full episode about, electing judges, because that's what we do here in Washington. We elect our judges. Though there are ways to get appointed, like if a judge retires midterm, then the governor and the legislature will appoint one. So we have like a hybrid system, but mostly they're elected. They're on the ballot every season.
Let us know if you folks would love us to get deep into that, because I feel like we could talk a long time about that.
Yes, I know. Wow. It's an interesting system. Being appointed for life also has its problems. Like Clarence Thomas at the Supreme Court is accepting lavish gifts.
Yeah.
From we should do a profile on Clarence.
Yeah, I would love to.
Lavish gifts from billionaires that have matters of interest before the court. There's really nothing we can do about it, because I think he can be impeached by the legislature, but the legislature's not going to do anything.
No.
So
much bigger things to focus on.
Yeah, so the problem with a judiciary that's too powerful and too stagnant is that it provides an easy target for people who want to implement the system. You just pour all your money on the one guy, and now you've got 1/9 of the court on your side.
Wow.
A good way to I've heard proposed to, like, there's an argument that, like, the appointment to the Supreme Court, you are appointed to the federal judiciary, not necessarily the Supreme Court. I think it's a constitutionally weak argument, but the argument is there. And so the idea is you would change it such that the Supreme Court is occupied by a rotating bench of of all the federal judges. And so that way there wouldn't be a set, like you would never know who was sitting on the court. But it would sort of represent the judiciary's culture as a whole, because you'd be rotating people in and out, and then there wouldn't be any more election games every time someone died at their post.
Yeah, wow. That eliminates a significant portion of the potential for corruption,
yes.
It appears.
Bad news is it is, we could do a deep dive on this later, it is a very weak... you really have to squint at. We'll get into it again. I'm trying to condense here. In my opinion, you really have to, like, squint to the Constitution to see that interpretation, because it does seem like they really intended for just everyone to sit on the court for life. But it was at a time when everyone only lived like 65 years old.
Yeah, instead of 100.
Yes, yeah. Instead of life expectancy is like doubled since the 1700s.
Crazy.
Thank God. But I also want to do a profile on Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah, I'd
because
love to do that.
Ultimately she died at her post, and she fell victim to her hubris and allowed most of her foundational career. She achieved so much as one of the most notorious women on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
She chose to die in power rather than retire and give it to someone else, and then so much of her legacy has been destroyed because of it. And I don't think she catches enough flack for it. So I will go after an old dead lady. Sorry, Ruth.
Let us know if you want to hear the story.
another potential story. Well, maybe we should put it to a vote from our sponsors, from our community.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of crazy stuff here. So he was falsifying records. We'll sort of get back to the story at hand.
He was falsifying records. I can't. This is just so. This one gets my emotions going, because of the potential for corruption and the bureaucracy of it all. And this is new information for me personally, so these are things that I'm just learning about and how messy it is. So McGaugh's infractions include purposeful negligence, lying to his parties, lying to the commission, blaming his mistakes on the clerk, and putting court staff in a potential position of reprimand when they were actually his mistakes.
Okay.
So eventually the Commission on Retirement, Removal, and Discipline presented McGaugh with these alleged 12 counts. And guess, what do you think? Did he contest the allegations or not?
He didn't contest them,
He did not contest them. You are correct.
Retired.
Ding,
okay.
ding, ding, ding. He specifically requested that he not be suspended, but rather he go into disability retirement.
Was that granted?
No.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. So as this investigation has progressed, McGaugh's mental health has been in question and affirmed to have affected his ability to complete the job. Not sure how it was affirmed. We're not sure what the mental health question is, because that's not disclosed in this case. But it was affirmed that his job performance was compromised because of this.
I've heard stories. There was like an 89-year-old federal late 80s, early 90s federal judge, and the judge had like dementia, and she had like early stage or late stage dementia. She was unwell, basically.
That's rough.
And she had sentenced a bunch of people and made a bunch of rulings while not fit of mind. And some panel was trying to get her removed. Her own colleagues thought she was no longer fit to sit on the bench, and she staying. She was fighting to keep her seat.
Wow.
And this is like a bigger problem. Same with there's almost no accountability for sexual harassment and on-the-job misconduct for federal clerks and clerkships. There's actually an entire foundation designed to like foster accountability at the federal level in clerkships.
Yep.
And we should do a whole episode on that because federal clerkships are their own can of worms. The judiciary is not really held accountable as individuals, and that's because they hold all the power and they oversee everyone's cases. And since the legal profession is self-regulated, no attorney wants to take them on. Yeah. Not even the bars, because the bars rely on them for misconduct referrals. They're already stretched for resources. They're trying to police the general population of attorneys. It's just not something on their plate, so it goes overlooked. Yeah. I wish I had a more favorable comment on that. I think we should do an episode on that soon. I think the federal judiciary, or actually just state judiciary, the judiciary in general, police misconduct, mostly the judiciary's fault. Either, because warrants, like Breonna Taylor's warrant, that was basically, I think it was, if I'm thinking of the right person, I can't believe I'm mixing up my egregious police misconduct cases. That's just too many. But that was the lady who had the search warrant and her boyfriend got into a shootout with the police, if I'm recalling correctly. The warrant turned out to be completely fabricated, and or the information based upon it. It was a faulty warrant, but it was approved by the judiciary because like metadata studies have shown that judges only spend like 13 seconds like approving warrants
because they have so much work to do.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
The judiciary is supposed to be the check.
13 seconds is the check that's built into our system.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Is like, is the stamp worth anything if it's a rubber stamp?
Very good question.
You be the judge.
Yeah, seriously.
Anything else? Is now that he's suspended, is there anything else to the story we should know about?
Just a couple more pieces of information here.
Okay.
On the court's opinion, the Supreme Court of Missouri's disciplinary proceedings here, there were two opinions from his colleagues, from other judges.
Oh, okay.
One of them disagrees and thought he should only be suspended for 6 months, which is no.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah. And then the other judge thinks oppositely, that no, he should just be removed immediately and not given any suspension or any chance of rejoining. And I was surprised to see those differing opinions there.
Because I'm guessing that first guy is his buddy. It's probably just his buddy. I mean, we cloak so much of judicial reasoning. We cloak so much of judicial reasoning in like fancy legal words and highfalutin nomenclature. When in reality, if you are a former clerk of a Supreme Court justice, I think you are, just by arguing in front of the Supreme Court justice, you are 13% more likely to get their vote. Studies have shown.
Wow.
Which to me is sort of a tacit objective admission that like we're just really making up things as we go, and the whole system is kind of intangible.
Love
in a way.
to hear it.
Yeah, it's built on norms, which is part of what makes this era so dangerous and unstable, is that if those norms are eroded, we'll find out that this really thing is ephemeral in the most foundational of ways. Yeah, and we see examples like that all the way up and down the judiciary.
Yeah, and maybe someday this guy's gonna come back. The next steps.
Well, he was elected, so most people don't even know this happened.
Right. Luckily, it's in the news. Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank God.
That's how I discovered this story. So when his suspension is 2 months away from ending, he will submit an independent mental health evaluation to the commission, and they will decide with that evaluation to whether or not to allow him to resume practicing or go on to disability retirement.
Okay.
So that'll be
practicing as a judge?
Yes.
Or as an attorney?
I believe as a judge. That wasn't specified in what I read, but I believe as a judge.
So that he still has his bar license.
Yeah.
That's not even threatened.
That's not even threatened here. That's not even in question.
So it's really just less than no consequences.
Yeah.
Because he's just deciding whether or not he gets to come back to his free job.
Yeah. He's not getting paid for this year that he's suspended, I'm happy to report. But so that'll be in early 2026 when we have news on whether McGaugh will come back.
All I
let me know if y'all want to hear that.
Is if I were to stop working, I would just be fired. And I would not be given a chance to maybe come back and do my job a year later. That's all I add on
just
that.
Be done.
Yeah.
One final thing that I want to mention here. We like to talk on this show about how the legal professionals that we profile are either towards the beginning of their career when they're still just learning the ropes, or they're towards the end when they think that they can get away with ever. So McGaugh, this year, he's turning 42 years old, which in the picture of a judge is quite young.
That is quite young.
Yeah.
I think the reason he felt comfortable doing so much is because he got away with it.
Yeah,
he still has his license. He's still eligible to sit on the bench, presumably. I mean, maybe that'd be politically unpopular, but he's really had no mark on his record other than he's just in a little trouble at work.
I can't believe it. It's just crazy.
Yeah, he has his bar license.
Yeah, and that's it. So he knew exactly how these cases were supposed to go, and then he just blatantly disregarded his years, like a couple of decades of expertise, just because he didn't feel like it or whatever. I don't know. Ooh, and that is the end of our story today for Judge Joe Don McGaugh.
Well, and judicial accountability more widely.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I want to do more episodes on judicial accountability. Talk about the apathy of the system.
Yeah, apathy for sure.
Also, big announcement. I will be matriculating at Seattle University School of Law this coming June. So just in a few. Yeah, thank you. I accepted my offer yesterday.
Congratulations.
Big news for the podcast is so one of us will maybe be a lawyer one time. Don't get legal advice for our podcast.
Yes, that is my favorite thing we love to finish this off with. Please, folks, do not get legal advice from a podcast, ours or otherwise.
Yeah, and I think are we cool to leave off here?
Yes, indeed.
Right, perfect. Everybody, support for the podcast comes from Hemmat Law, Quimby, NordVPN, all the other good things. Hit all the good buttons. Share this with a friend. Pledge as little as $5 a month keeps the lights on, keeps us on the air. Go to gossipwithoutprejudice.com. Lindsey, thank you so much for joining me for another week. We will be back sooner than 1 week from now.
Yes.
We're still working out the schedule. We'll put it in a trailer whenever we have it, and then we'll go from there. Anything else, Lindsey, before we close out?
Thank you for listening. Yes. We're so glad you're here with us. We appreciate you.
Thanks so much, guys. See you next week.
Bye.